Welcome to Tech Transformation with CGT and RIS News. I'm Lisa Johnson, the editor-in-chief of CGT. We've been taking a deep dive into decision intelligence, and this is part 3 in our special series sponsored by Era, where we're looking at how decision intelligence can impact the consumer goods industry. So in this episode, I'm really excited to be speaking with Guillaume Doriry, Digital Transformation Senior Director, Global Supply Chain and ERP at Mars, and Fred Lelio, CEO of Era Technology. We're going to look at how Mars has been using decision intelligence and how it's been driving adoption across the industry. So, gentlemen, welcome.
Thanks for having us, Lisa.
Hello.
Fred, this is our third episode where we've been talking about decision intelligence. But for the benefit of our audience, can you just take us quickly through, just kind of set the stage by explaining what decision intelligence is and how it can provide a competitive advantage for CPGs?
Well, CPG companies are facing a massive explosion in the number, the volume, and the complexity of the decisions that they have to make to remain competitive. It's the result of the digitization of the economy, right? So that's driving decisions at a lower grain. That's driving an increase in the frequency at which decisions have to be made. And they're facing that bottleneck in the decision-making process. And decision intelligence is basically a technology that, or an approach that digitizes decision-making. It automates and augments the decisions that an organization needs to make by providing, again, a digital capability to do that.
Perfect. Thanks for setting the stage. So, Guillaume, Mars is a really large global company with an incredibly complex supply chain. So tell us a little bit about your role at the company and why you initially partnered with Era to really operationalize AI for decision intelligence.
Okay. Yeah, I'm leading a team that is helping Mars to transform their end-to-end supply chain. And one of our main objectives is to gain agility to make our business more agile, to speed up some of our processes. So initially, like many companies, we have been looking into AI, and we were searching, and this is where I got into contact with Era. We were searching for a platform that would enable the adoption, but also having an open platform where we could put our own IP. So yes, it's about AI, but not having a black box. We wanted to really to have a platform that was open, and that's where we get into contact with Era.
Can you talk a little bit about how decision intelligence is changing the work that you're doing and how it's changing your business?
It's all about, many people have been afraid a little bit about AI. At the same time, everybody is doing AI. So our approach was really to get and to augment our associates at Mars. We call the employee associates. So how we help our associates to get not to a better decision. It's not about better decision. It's about speeding up how they make decisions. Is to be more equipped. In a few projects, the feedback we received from the end user, they had the feeling that they were facing a tsunami of data. And very often in supply chain today, and especially with AI, we generate and we capture much more data and we leverage much more data than before, up to the point where the end user is facing so many data that he's a little bit confused, or it's difficult for him to process everything. And honestly, it's humanly not possible to process all of those data. So we were looking for a platform that was helping them to understand better the data that was coming to them and help them to make a decision based on data. So it doesn't apply to every decision making that you have got in your supply chain, but there are more and more decisions that needs to be powered by data. And this is where having a platform that helps you to focus, help you to understand the decision you can make, and convert also your decision based on data and convert that into action. And that was where the Era platform was particularly powerful for us.
Okay. And so you mentioned that at Mars they're called associates. I've heard that they're also called Martians. Is that true? That the employees at Mars are sometimes called Martians?
Very strong culture based on the 5 principles. You are completely correct.
Okay. So within this, can you talk a little bit about how you've helped drive adoption, and would love to learn more about the feedback that you've heard from your fellow associates?
We know that everybody is speaking about AI today. Okay. People do different kind of AI or different level of AI, machine learning or ChatGPT. It doesn't matter. what was important for us was to make sure that it was not going to be a black box. People want to stay in control, and we didn't do that to be able to lay off anybody. It was not meant to replace any human being. It was just to augment them. So yes, the adoption was particularly important, and part of the criteria for selecting ERA was as well the quality of the user experience, the way they can visualize the data, the fact that we can activate real-time data, so we can do a closed loop, the fact that people see the action that are going to be taken and they are still under control, and that was particularly important in the adoption. We had overactivity on AI, sometimes grown, I would say, organically within the company. We built our own solution, but the adoption was not exactly the same because people felt that they were losing control. People felt that they were not going to be able to explain why we have been pushing one specific decision. Here, in that case, people see the data, people see the focus, where their focus should be, and people then see the action and the consequence of the actions. And therefore, this is changing the game. So we had a very different feedback since we implemented ERA for those users, a very different feedback. And therefore, the adoption is lasting much longer. Okay. And this is the same, we all do RPAs. The last time of RPAs, at least in my area, has been more or less a year. This is not the case where we implement ERA. Again, it's about augmenting the people, empowering them and supporting them in the decision-making process, not replacing completely the associates. Now, this being said, they are under control. And if they want, at one point of time, they feel they've got the confidence that now the algorithm has learned enough about their decision and they want to automate it, we have got the capability to do it. It's under their control. And we can write back. So what they love is that they understand, they can visualize, they're under control, and ultimately that remove the part of the work which is very often painful, which is about writing back the data into the other application, whether it is SAP or any other system of record. This is not a task where they enjoy. So when we can remove that task on top, you get excellent feedback, and therefore the adoption is established and sustained.
It sounds like a very human-centered approach that you've taken.
Yeah, that was the idea, and for us, our associate and our associate concept is at the center of everything that we do at Mars, and therefore that was extremely important, not to replace them, but to give them the control, and that they feel empowered, augmented, and under control.
Fred, you've worked very closely with Mars throughout this process, and as they've reached their different decision-making milestones. So what are some of the insights that you've seen come out of their journey that other CPGs could learn from this?
It's not just CPGs. Actually, I think any organization deploying. I think there are two aspects that come to mind. The first one is the culture of innovation. Mars was one of the early adopters. Guillaume and his team were early adopters of that technology. They were not afraid to try new things. They were very careful, take a limited scope, but try and start learning and build that experience of their own on how to actually digitize decision making. So I think starting early is important so that you can build this experience. You're not replacing an existing software with a new software. This is changing the way work gets done. This is changing the way decisions are being made inside your organization. And correlated to that is the point that Guillaume just made, is the attention to adoption. I believe that Mars paid specific attention to that, making sure that the associates would really understand how to guide the system, stay in control. As Guillaume said multiple times, it feels like there was a lot of attention in that field, and I think everybody can learn from that. We certainly did at ERA, and really, I think Guillaume, you've even put some. I've seen a video recently that really helps. Very nice, well-produced material, like 3 or 4 minute video that explains the value of the technology. You even named the technology with your own within your own framework of Mars, and I think it's really, really brilliant. Right? It's just making sure that everybody feels comfortable with the technology, making sure that they are in control. It's not a black box. I think that's there's a case study here for sure.
Guillaume, what do you see when you're looking ahead to the future of decision intelligence? What do you think the impact will be on the CPG industry, let's say within the next year, kind of more short-term future, but even beyond that, what do you see as the future?
One of the themes in supply chain was about the visibility, and we want to remove every part of our supply chain. Remove, even if it's getting smaller and smaller, there is no place in the supply chain where we don't want to have visibility and control. But by doing that, we generate really a lot of data. And so it's important that if you want to be more equipped in making those decisions, you can't assume that your employees or associates are capable to process all of those data. This is just not fully respectful of the work that those people need to do. So it's very important that you are helping them to feel that they are equipped, that they are capable to do the work that they need to do. And yes, nowadays I think everybody got it. Our supply chain needs to be more agile. It needs to be data driven. It's not based on our assumption that we used to have in the past. And at the same time, we are in a world that is changing very more often, more quickly, with more impact than before. And the supply chain has been impacted. I'm not going to name what has happened in the last 3 years, but you see exactly what I mean. Everybody will understand that. And at the same time, your employees, your associates need to react to that. So the good news is that they've got the way to do that without feeling overwhelmed. Now they know, and we can support with such a platform like ERA, you can support them to focus where it matters. And because otherwise they could get lost. They are asked to find where they need to focus, and they have got so many part of the supply chain where they can look at, and having them through a kind of heat map, understanding where they need to focus every morning. This is relieving the pressure they've got on them. And you can do that through certain criteria, but depending on what you're trying to optimize, what matters the most for your business, this is helping your associates, your business user to really focus there. So that give control as well to the management in terms of what matters, and help the associate to focus where they can make a difference, powered by data, but without being overwhelmed by this tsunami of information that normally they are facing.
Sure. And certainly a trend I think many in the industry could get behind. Fred, do you have anything else that you'd want to add to that and what you see as the future?
No, I really like Guillaume's perspective on putting the associate first. I mentioned that before, but look, I think what you're describing here is a global trend, and there's a recent Gartner analysis called the hype cycle for artificial intelligence that positions decision intelligence as a subcategory of AI, with a tag as being transformational, right? It's transformational. It changes the way the organizations are doing work, and it's going to get to a maturity within the next couple of years, which is something that is happening really, really fast. So this technology is, again, not another gimmick of tech stuff that looks cool. It's actually really fundamentally changing work gets done, putting the human operator back in the front, so removing the bottleneck of work that they're facing every day, and allowing them to put their attention on the right decision. So that's fundamentally transformational. There's no way back. I think organizations will have to learn how to work and how to organize and structure themselves around this new practice. The same way automation changed the way a factory is running. You now have operators managing robots and robotic system. This is now happening in the rest of the organization. I don't think there's no turning back. So learning how to do it properly is really critical.
Okay, so we are almost out of time, but Guillaume, I have one final question. What final words can you leave us with when it comes to best practices for CPG leaders who are thinking about adopting decision intelligence? If you could tell them one thing, one final thoughts, what would it be?
Well, don't believe that this is like any analytics that you are doing, but normally the decision-making process was supported by analytics. Don't start with requirements and from a kind of top-down approach on how you want to do that. Now, be very clear about where you want to have an impact, and start with the reverse. Start with the problem you're trying to solve. And start bottom up and not top down. Because if you need to start with the data that you have, and honestly, in some case, we would not have been able to specify the data that we finally need now. So that's you need to go through a kind of learning exercise. don't try to make it on paper and to say, this is what I need, because you don't know exactly how this is going to happen. So learn, adjust, do several iterations, because this is how you're going to get the best out of it. And don't forget to put your end user really at the center. Okay, it's not something that, of course, your top management needs to be very clear about what kind of change that they're looking for, but it has to start with the end user in mind, because you're doing that for them. They are the ones who are going to execute your supply chain. So if you have got a more human-centric kind of approach, if you start and accept the fact that you need to go for an iterative learning exercise with them, you are going to be, you have got a good chance to be successful.
Okay, well, that was more than one thing, but I'm glad it was, because you left us with some great advice. So, Guillaume and Fred, thank you so much for joining Tech Transformation and for schooling us so eloquently on decision intelligence.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Lisa.
Guillaume.